The question came from the back row, quiet enough that it almost slipped between the hum of the ventilation system and the soft flicker of the holographic display. Professor Illyra paused mid-gesture. The image behind her froze, a human city skyline at dusk, lights glowing warm against the dark. Peaceful. Ordinary. She didn't turn immediately. "Repeat that," she said. The student shifted. A slender avian, feathers drawn tight against her frame. Why do humans practice violence, even when they're not threatened? A few students glanced at each other. Most didn't move at all. The question settled into the room like something alive. Professor Illyra turned slowly, her eyes scanning the semicircle of faces. Fur, chitin, scaled hides, soft bioluminescent membranes, all watching her now with the same quiet expectation. She exhaled. "That," she said, "is not a simple question." A faint ripple of discomfort passed through the room. She stepped toward the control panel, her fingers hovering for just a moment before selecting a new file. The city vanished. The display shifted. A small human child appeared in its place. No armor. No weapons. No threat. Just a child sitting cross-legged on a floor, surrounded by objects, blocks, soft constructs, bright-colored shapes. Another child sat across from him. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then one of them picked up a plastic object. Thin, ridged, bright blue. The sword. He swung it. The other child laughed. And swung back. The sound echoed through the lecture hall, light, playful, completely harmless. Several students leaned forward. A few recoiled. "They are not being instructed," Illyra said quietly. "No adult intervention. No external stimulus." The children continued, striking, missing, stumbling, correcting. One fell. He laughed harder. Then he tackled the other. More laughter. More movement. Grappling. Fun. Most predatory species, Illyra continued, require environmental pressure to engage combat behaviors. Hunger. Territorial breach. Mating competition. She tapped the display. The image zoomed slightly. One child bared his teeth, not in fear. In excitement. "Humans," she said, "do not." The room went still. A soft clicking sound came from the left, someone's mandibles shifting in discomfort. "They simulate violence before they understand survival," she went on. "Before they understand death. Before they understand consequence." On screen, one child pinned the other to the ground. The one beneath him squealed. Then bit him. The first child yelped. Then laughed again. "They are learning boundaries," Illyra said. A scaled student raised a trembling limb. "From whom?" Illyra didn't answer immediately. She watched the footage for a moment longer. "They are not taught where to begin," she said finally. "Only where to stop." The words hung there. Heavy. Unsettling. The display shifted again. Now the children were older. Maybe 6. Outside. Open space. They ran at each other with sticks. Not toys this time. Branches. One swung wide. The other ducked. Countered. Faster now. More precise. A hit landed. The struck child flinched. Then smiled. "Human development includes a phase known as rough play," Illyra said. "It is socially encouraged. Monitored but not prevented." "Why?" someone whispered. Illyra looked at them. "Because on their world," she said, "misjudging force is fatal." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. The display flickered. A new image replaced the children. A planet. Blue oceans. White cloud systems. Landmasses rich with green and brown. Beautiful. At first glance. Then the annotations appeared. Red markers. Thousands of them. Venomous life forms. Apex predators. Extreme weather zones. Pathogenic densities. A label scrolled across the bottom. Death World. Several students audibly inhaled. "This designation," Illyra continued, "is contested." She stepped closer to the projection. "Not because it is inaccurate," she said softly, "but because we are uncertain whether the planet deserves it, or the species that survived it." Silence. Absolute. A distant sound echoed faintly through the corridor outside the lecture hall. A sharp noise. A shout. Every head turned. Another sound followed. Laughter. Iller didn't react. Through the narrow side window, two human figures passed by. They were pushing each other. No, grappling. One had the other in a hold. The second broke free, shoved back. They stumbled into the wall, nearly falling. Still laughing. Still fighting. One of them swung something, a wrapped ration bar, like a weapon. The other blocked it with his forearm. Grinned. Neither seemed concerned. Neither seemed afraid. They disappeared down the corridor, their laughter echoing long after they were gone. No one in the room spoke. Illyra let the silence stretch. Then she turned back to her students. Humans, she said, do not reserve violence for survival. Her voice was calm, measured, but something in it had shifted. They use it to communicate. A few students flinched. They use it to bond, she continued, to establish hierarchy, to release stress, to express affection. On the display, the image returned to the earlier footage. Two children, laughing, fighting, indistinguishable from joy. The same neural pathways, Illyra said, activate during physical conflict and emotional closeness. She paused. They do not experience violence as we do. A long, quiet moment passed. Then, from the front row, a small voice spoke. How do they stop? Illyra met the student's gaze. Held it. For just a second too long. That, she said softly, is the only part they have to learn. The lights dimmed slightly as the system cycled. No one moved. No one spoke. On the screen, the children kept playing. Laughing. Hitting. Learning. And the line between harmless and lethal remained just out of sight. The room did not recover. Even after the display dimmed and the footage ended, something had shifted. The students no longer sat with curiosity. They sat with calculation. Professor Illyra let it happen. Fear, properly placed, was educational. She moved back to the center of the room, folding her hands behind her back. What you witnessed, she said, is not an anomaly. It is a baseline. A murmur rippled through the hall. She tapped the panel again. The display changed. Now it showed multiple species, brief clips, categorized, clinical. A predator stalking through tall grass. Slow. Precise. Every step measured. A Nini herbivore harvesting nutrient growths, pausing to carefully end the life of a smaller organism caught in its feeding range. Its antennae curled inward afterward. Another clip. A Ural hunter delivering a single, efficient strike to its prey. No excess motion. No hesitation. No repetition. The sequence ended. Illyra turned back to the class. Across the Confederation, she said, violence is a tool. It is used when necessary, avoided when possible, and ended the moment its purpose is fulfilled. She let her gaze sweep across them. Humans, she said, do not follow this pattern. The display shifted again. A human adolescent, perhaps 12 cycles old, standing in an open field with several others. No threat indicators. No predators. No scarcity. They were throwing each other to the ground. Deliberately. Again and again. One fell hard enough to lose breath. The others laughed. Helped him up. Then did it again. Why continue? A student asked, voice tight. The objective was already achieved. There is no objective, Illyra replied. The words landed harder than anything before. She stepped closer to the projection. For humans, the act itself has value. The footage slowed. Frame by frame. Muscle movement. Reaction time. Impact angles. They refine force, she said. Test thresholds. Map responses. The pause. And they enjoy it. The room went quiet again. Not shocked this time. Understanding. That was worse. Illyra changed the display. Now it was a human city. Crowded. Alive. No visible conflict. No active threats. Yet the data overlay told a different story. Micro-incidents. Thousands of them. Arguments escalating. Physical confrontations. Sudden bursts of aggression. All minor. All contained. All constant. They do not wait for danger, she said. Her voice had lowered slightly. They simulate it. A scaled student in the back shifted uneasily. To prepare. Yes, Illyra said. Then, after a beat. And no. She let the confusion build before continuing. Preparation is part of it, she admitted. But incomplete. She expanded the data. Neural scans appeared. Highlighted regions of the human brain pulsed with activity. Reward centers. Emotional processing nodes. Motor control pathways. All linked. All sentient species possess mechanisms for survival, she said. Fear responses. Defensive instincts. Adrenal acceleration. She pointed to the highlighted regions. In humans, those systems are entangled. Another pause. They do not fully separate threat from stimulation. The words sank slowly. A few students leaned back. Others leaned forward, trying to understand. Physical conflict, Illyra continued, can trigger the same reward responses as social bonding. She tapped again. New footage. 2 human adults. Locked in what appeared to be combat. Aggressive. Controlled. Strikes landed. Blocks countered. Neither held back. It stopped. Instantly. Both stepped away. Breathing hard. Smiling. One extended a hand. The other took it. Pulled themselves upright. Then, laughter. Casual. Genuine. They walked off together. Unharmed. Unconcerned. Training exercise? Someone asked. No, Illyra said. A recreational activity. The silence that followed was heavier than before. A student near the front spoke without raising a limb. They were enjoying it. Yes. The word came without hesitation. Illyra let that sit. Then she moved again. The display shifted back to the planetary view. The same beautiful, deadly sphere. This environment, she said, did not allow hesitation. Markers lit up across the surface. Predators. Toxins. Diseases. Weather extremes. Every interaction carried risk, she continued. Every miscalculation had consequences. She turned back to them. So the species adapted. A quiet voice, barely above a whisper. Into this. Illyra held their gaze. Yes. No elaboration. None needed. The room felt smaller now. Denser. Like the air itself had weight. They developed the ability to engage violence quickly, she said. Efficiently. Repeatedly. She stepped closer. And then they removed the requirement. A few students visibly recoiled. They practice it, she said. Refine it. Integrate it into social structures. Her tone didn't change. That made it worse. They teach their young where the limit is, by approaching it. The display returned to the children again. The bite. The laughter. The lack of fear. They learn exactly how far they can go, she said. And exactly how much it takes to break something. No one spoke. No one moved. A long moment passed. Then, from the far side of the room, Professor. Illyra looked. The student's voice shook. If they are always this close to the limit. The pause. A swallow. What happens when they cross it? Illyra didn't answer immediately. She let the question breathe. Let it spread. Then she turned back to the display. The image zoomed in slowly. From the planet. To the continents. To a city. To a street. To a single human face in a crowd. Expression neutral. Unreadable. They don't always know they have, she said quietly. The lights dimmed another degree. And by the time they realize. She let the sentence hang. Unfinished. Because the implication was already there. And it was worse than anything she could have said. No one asked the next question. They didn't need to. Professor Illyra could see it in their posture now. In the way their bodies had shifted from curiosity to quiet, instinctive caution. Limbs tucked closer. Eyes tracking movement that wasn't there. She turned back to the display. For most species, she said, violence is an event. The pause. A moment in time. A reaction to something external. She tapped the panel. The screen split into multiple columns. On the left, predators across the Confederation. Hunting, striking, feeding. Each sequence short, contained, ending the moment survival was secured. On the right, humans. Clips cycled rapidly. Arguments escalating into fights. Fights escalating into something worse. Crowds forming. Chaos spreading. Another set of clips. Structured violence. Uniforms. Weapons. Explosions blooming across landscapes. Cities burning. Lines drawn and redrawn in blood. Illyra let it run just long enough. Then she cut it. Silence returned, heavier than before. For humans, she continued, violence is not an event. She turned to face them fully. It is a state. The words settled like ash. A student in the second row lifted a trembling limb. That level of sustained aggression should destabilize them. It does, Illyra said. A flicker of relief crossed a few faces. Then she continued. But not in the way you expect. The display shifted again. Data this time. Clinical. Impossible to ignore. Graphs stretching across centuries. Markers highlighting major human conflicts. War after war. Each one massive. Each one devastating. And then, overlaid data appeared. Psychological metrics. Crime rates. Self-harm statistics. Patterns. Trends. A student leaned forward. Those numbers, they're dropping. Yes, Illyra said. Her voice was quieter now. Almost careful. During large-scale conflict, many forms of internal human instability decrease. The room stilled. Violent crime declines. Certain psychological disorders become less pronounced. Social cohesion increases. No one interrupted. No one dared. They become, she said, stable. The word felt wrong. It sounded wrong. A scaled student's voice cracked. You're saying war helps them? Illyra held their gaze. I am saying, she replied slowly, that war gives them something to direct themselves at. She turned back to the display. A single-line graph expanded. Outlet, the internal mechanisms do not deactivate. She tapped the panel again. New images appeared. Not war. Not battlefields. Individuals. Human faces. Still images. Ordinary at first glance. Smiling. Neutral. Unremarkable. Then the data tags appeared beneath them. Confirmed kills. Patterns of behavior. Durations. Escalation curves. The room reacted this time. Audibly. They don't look different, one student said, almost pleading. They aren't, Illyra replied. She moved slowly along the front of the room. Human variation in this regard is structured. She stopped. Turned. There are patterns. The display reorganized. 3 categories formed. She gestured to the first. Type 1, she said. Reactive. An image of a human, eyes wide, posture defensive. These individuals engage violence only under direct threat. They experience distress afterward. Guilt. Psychological damage. A few students visibly relaxed. This, Illyra said, is the closest approximation to the Confederation norm. She moved to the second category. Type 2, she continued. The image changed. A human in uniform. Still composed. Eyes focused. These individuals require justification, she said. Rules. Lines that, once crossed, remove restraint. She paused. And when that line is crossed, they do not hesitate. The room tightened again. They do not enjoy it, she added. But they do not regret it either. A student's voice came from the side. They decide who deserves to die. Yes. No hesitation. No softening. They construct internal frameworks, she said. And once you fall outside them, you are no longer protected. The words landed hard. Harder than before. Because now it wasn't chaos. It was judgment. She turned to the final category. The screen shifted. A human face. Smiling. But something was wrong. Subtle. Empty. These, Illyra said quietly, are the ones your question was leading to. The room went completely still. Type 3. She didn't look away from the image. They do not require threat. The pause. They do not require justification. Another. They do not require a reason. The silence stretched. No one moved. No one breathed. They experience violence, she said, as reward. A student in the front row shook their head slowly. That cannot be stable. It isn't, Illyra said. Then how? They hide. The interruption was immediate. Terrifying. Illyra finally looked back at the class. They function, she continued. They integrate. They mimic every expected behavior. Her voice dropped. You will not identify them through casual observation. A long, quiet moment passed. How many? The question barely made it out. Illyra didn't answer right away. She turned back to the display. Numbers began to populate. Slowly, deliberately, climbing higher and higher. And that, she said softly, is the part most species find difficult to accept. She let the numbers keep rising. No final total. No comforting limit. Because the answer, the pause, just long enough to matter, is not small. The lights dimmed slightly. The hum of the room returned. But it sounded different now. Like something under strain. And for the first time since the lecture began, no one in the room felt safe anymore. No one looked at the numbers anymore. They didn't need to. The idea had already taken root. Professor Illyra let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable, then she moved again. Slow, deliberate, controlled. Data, she said, can be dismissed. A few students shifted, misinterpreted, debated, ignored. She tapped the panel. The numbers vanished. The room darkened. Observation, she continued, is harder to argue with. The display flickered. Grainy footage replaced the sterile graphs. A marketplace. Crowded. But dozens of species moving through narrow pathways between vendor stalls. Time stamp in the corner. Unremarkable. At first. Focus here, Illyra said. The image zoomed slightly. A small figure entered the frame. A child. Not human. Light-framed. Slower reflexes. Distracted. Another figure approached. Larger. Heavier. A labor-caste species. No visible threat. No escalation. The strike came without warning. Beckoned. The child hit the ground hard enough that several students flinched in unison. The sound echoed through the lecture hall. No one spoke. The marketplace didn't stop. A few bystanders turned. Most didn't. The larger figure stepped forward. Raised a limb again. Watch closely, Illyra said. 3 new figures entered the frame. Humans. No uniforms. No weapons. No visible coordination. And yet, they moved together. Not planned. Not discussed. Instinctive. The first reached the aggressor in less than 2 seconds. No warning. No command. Just impact. The force of it snapped the larger figure sideways. The second human closed distance immediately. Low strike. Joint collapse. The third didn't engage the attacker. He went to the child. Position between. Shielding. The footage stuttered slightly. Then stabilized. What followed was not a fight. It was termination. Efficient. Relentless. The aggressor fell. Tried to rise. The first human didn't stop. Didn't step back. Didn't reassess. He continued. Strike after strike. Until movement ceased. He struck again. And again. Even after it was over. Several students recoiled. One turned away completely. They didn't stop, someone whispered. No, Illyra said. Her voice was steady. They didn't. On screen, bystanders had begun to react. Some moved forward. Attempted to intervene. The human nearest the body turned. Not fast. Not aggressive. Just enough. And the crowd stopped. No one touched him. No one tried again. The second human stepped back. Breathing hard. Scanning. The third checked the child. Helped them sit up. Spoke calmly. Reassuring. The same hands. Different purpose. They switched roles, a student said, voice unsteady. Yes. Illyra didn't look away from the footage. Instantly. The clip ended. The screen went dark. No transition. No softening. Just absence. That, she said into the silence, is a type 2 response. No one questioned it. No one wanted to. They identified a boundary, she continued. Observed it being crossed. She turned slowly and removed the threat. A long pause. They kept going, the same student said. Not a question. A realization. Yes. Illyra inclined her head slightly, because in that moment, the threat had not yet been fully resolved. The wording didn't help. If anything, it made it worse. She tapped the panel again. New footage. Different location. Different time. A narrow corridor. Low light. Sparse traffic. A group. 8 individuals. Surrounding one smaller figure. Not human. The pattern was obvious. Predatory. Coordinated. Audio has been suppressed, Illyra said. You don't need it. The first strike came from the group. A kick. The smaller figure folded. Didn't fall immediately. Second strike. Then third. No hesitation. No resistance. A single human entered. Started acting as individuals. That was when it ended. Not gradually. Not evenly. Suddenly. One tried to run. The human didn't pursue. He didn't need to. The rest were already down. Broken point, one line representing external conflict. Another representing internal breakdown. They moved in opposite directions. Perfectly. When that direction disappears, she continued, the system compensates. The graph shifted. Conflict line dropped. Internal instability surged. Violent. Uncontrolled. They turn inward, someone whispered. Yes. The answer came without hesitation. They always do. The silence that followed wasn't just fear anymore. It was realization. A student near the back spoke, voice barely audible. Then peace. Illyra didn't let them finish. Is not neutral, she said. She stepped forward. It is pressure. The word pressed into the room. Without an external the frame. From the far end of the corridor. Walking. Not running. Not rushing. Just approaching. The group noticed. One turned. Gestured. Dismissive. The human didn't respond. Didn't slow. Didn't stop. Distance closed. 5 steps. 4. 3. The first attacker moved to intercept. Confident. Unprepared. The human didn't speak. Didn't signal. Didn't warn. He accelerated. The transition from walking to violence was instant. Total. The first attacker went down before the others reacted. The second tried to flank. Too slow. The human pivoted. Collapse. The third hesitated. That was enough. Within seconds, the structure of the group failed. Coordination broke. They stopped acting as a unit. Started acting as individuals. That was when it ended. Not gradually. Not evenly. Suddenly. One tried to run. The human didn't pursue. He didn't need to. The rest were already down. Broken. Immobile. The corridor fell silent. The human stood there for a moment. Breathing steady. Then he turned. Walked to the smaller figure. Knelt. Checked for response. Careful. Precise. The same hands. Different purpose. He didn't chase, a student said. Correct. He could have. Yes. Why didn't he? Illyra paused. Just long enough. Because the objective was complete. The words felt clinical. Detached. But the footage hadn't been. That contrast lingered. He chose to stop, another student said. Yes. Illyra stepped forward. And that distinction is critical. She let her gaze move across the room. They do not lack control. The pause. They decide when to use it. No one liked that answer. She could see it. Feel it. Now, she said quietly, we adjust the variables. The display changed again. No footage this time. Just a single image. A human. Seated. Relaxed posture. Neutral expression. Eyes forward. No visible threat. No context. Type 3, Illyra said. The room tightened instantly. No one asked how she knew. No one wanted confirmation. They do not require provocation, she continued. They do not require escalation. Her voice dropped slightly. They do not require a reason. Silence. Heavy. Oppressive. They experience the act itself as reward. A student shook their head slowly. Then why aren't they constantly? They are not uncontrolled, Illyra interrupted. That stopped the question cold. They are selective. A longer pause this time. They wait. The word echoed. They observe, she said. Adapt. She took a step closer. And when they act, no one breathed. It is indistinguishable from the others. The implication hit all at once. Not a different kind of violence. The same. Just chosen differently. You won't know, Illyra said softly. You will not see it coming. She turned back to the image. The human still sat there. Ordinary. Unremarkable. And by the time you understand what they are. She let the sentence fade. Didn't finish it. Didn't need to. Because now, they all could. The image stayed on the screen longer than it should have. No movement. No context. Just a human face, still and unreadable. Professor Illyra let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then she dimmed the display just slightly. Up to this point, she said, her voice calm again, controlled, you've been observing them from a distance. A few students shifted. That word, distance, no longer felt reassuring. It's easier that way, she continued. Safer. You can categorize. Analyze. Convince yourselves there are patterns you can rely on. She paused. There are. A flicker of relief passed through the room. Then she added, they're just not the ones you want. The display changed. Not data. Not recordings. A live feed. The corridor outside the lecture hall. Empty. Still. Too still. Humans integrate into multi-species environments more effectively than any known race, Illyra said. They learn quickly. Social cues. Behavioral norms. Emotional responses. The camera zoomed slightly. A figure entered the corridor. Human. Carrying a small container. Walking at an unremarkable pace. They mirror, she said. The human adjusted his grip on the container. Glanced briefly toward the classroom door. Then looked away. Tone. Posture. Expression. He stopped just outside the door. Waited. Even fear, Illyra added quietly. No one in the room moved. They can feel it, she said. They may not understand it the way you do, but they recognize it. A student's voice came out strained. Is he? I don't know, Illyra said. That answer landed harder than anything else she'd said all session. She stepped closer to the door. Didn't open it. Not yet. That, she said, is the problem. The human outside shifted his weight slightly. Relaxed. Patient. Type 1 will hesitate, she continued. Type 2 will assess. The pause. Type 3 will wait. No one blinked. No one breathed. A soft knock came from the other side of the door. Polite. Measured. Completely normal. Every student flinched. Professor? A voice called from outside. Friendly. Casual. Delivery from Earth. Illyra closed her eyes for half a second. Then opened them. Composed. Observe, she said softly. She reached for the door controls. Her hand didn't shake. That, more than anything, unsettled her. The seal disengaged with a quiet hiss. The door slid open. The human stood there. Average height. Average build. Neutral posture. Holding the container in both hands. He smiled. It was the kind of smile every species recognized. Non-threatening. Professional. Practiced. Package for Professor Illyra, he said. His voice was steady. Completely ordinary. Illyra studied him. Every detail. Breathing rate. Eye movement. Muscle tension. Nothing stood out. Nothing broke pattern. Behind her, she could feel the students watching. Waiting. Trying to see what she saw. Trying to understand what they couldn't. She reached out. Took the container. Their hands touched. Briefly. His grip was firm. Controlled. He let go immediately. Have a good cycle, he said. Still smiling. Still normal. turned, walked away down the corridor. No rush, no hesitation. Just another worker completing a task. The door slid shut. The lock engaged. The room stayed silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Illyra stood there for a moment, staring at the closed door. Then she turned back to her students. "They live among you," she said quietly. Her voice had changed. Not louder, not sharper, just heavier. "They work beside you, speak like you, learn your habits, earn your trust." She walked back to the center of the room, set the container down on the desk, didn't open it. "They can be kind," she continued, "protective, loyal." The pause. "They can also be something else." No one needed her to define it. They already knew. She looked around the room. At the fear. At the realization. At the way they now watched the door instead of the screen. "You will interact with them," she said. "It is unavoidable." Another pause. Longer this time. "So understand this." She placed both hands on the desk. Leaned forward slightly. Not aggressive. Not threatening. Just certain. "You are not looking at a species that becomes dangerous under the right conditions." Her eyes moved across each of them. One by one. "You are looking at a species that is always dangerous. The beat. And chooses when not to be." The ventilation hummed. Someone shifted in their seat. Too loud. Too sudden. From somewhere down the corridor. Laughter. Human. Unrestrained. Echoing faintly through the structure. The sound lingered. And no one in the room could decide if it was a comfort or a warning.